record to this computer and I'll do the business. Hello,
Okay, man.
everybody. Welcome to Random Access Memories with me, Ian Lee, the show where I invite a guest on to talk about a retro game, very, very loose term, that means something to them. This week, I'm really excited. It's Amigo Aaron from like you do a million different podcasts.
Yeah, we do a few.
Can you narrow them down and name some of them?
Well, we started doing Amigos, Everything Amiga podcast. Me and Boat did. And then, after you do one for a few years, you're like, I like other stuff. So then we started doing ARG Presents where you could do a bunch of different games. And then we both got into the Sinclair, so we started doing that. And then with the Atari ST, the CoCo, so we like to get into a little bit of everything, but we've slowed down substantially the past 2 years. We were doing these things every month, but
Yeah.
we've slowed down considerably.
I don't want to blow too much smoke up your ass, but I'm going to blow a little bit. So be prepared.
Okay, I'm ready, man.
The reason I got back into retro I was writing a column for Retro Gamer, and that was it. A few things happened, and the reason this podcast exists, the reason I'm doing retro streaming is down to you. I will explain.
Yeah, I gotta hear this.
Couple of years ago, probably 2 years ago, I was in a junk shop in Liverpool, and they had a Dragon 32. And I used to have a Dragon 32, and I'm looking at it, and it was a bit pricey, and my partner was going, "Well, buy it." And I went, "Oh no, I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to get it." And Aaron, I could not stop thinking about this Dragon. I could not stop thinking. And I thought, I wonder if anyone's done a Dragon podcast. Of course, no one has. But some fools had started a thing called the CoCo Show.
Yeah.
And, the TRS-80, the CoCo, very, very similar machine. And I was hooked. So that's how I found you. And listening to that is what then made me go on eBay and buy a Dragon 32.
Well, that's incredible. It's funny because I've listened to a bunch of your shows and caught some of your appearances on This Week in Retro.
Okay.
Because the first time, we had I don't know, we were talking about the Patreon list or something, and somebody goes, "Hey, Ian Lee's one of y'all's Patreons," and I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Do you know who that is?" And I was like, "Well, I know. I mean, no offense, but we're in the States. I didn't know who,
I wasn't that big in America, no.
And they're like, he's a big, huge star. I'm like, oh, okay.
Well,
And so I thought that's odd. And then I saw you mention this on This Week in Retro one time. And it's funny you should mention it because I was at if you listen to our shows for years and years, I talk about this place called the Hillbilly Flea Market in Greenup,
yes.
Kentucky. And I was in the Hillbilly Flea Market one time, and what's sitting there is a CoCo 2. I'm like, holy smokes, I haven't thought about these for a while. So I sort of got into it like you, back into the CoCo like you did. I found some guys, the CoCo and the Dragon, like we do game stuff, but most of the people are real serious.
Yeah.
They aren't really into games that much, but they're really into technical stuff. And so, but I got back into it, and then I was like having so much fun. I introduced it to Boat, and we just took off from there. So that's awesome. It's nice to know that I played a small part in building your retro empire, brother.
Well, you have, and then through that, I know nothing about the Amiga, right? I was out of gaming at that point. I kind of checked out towards the end of the BBC and got back with the Saturn and the PlayStation. So the Amiga means nothing to me. But I still listen to your show about the Amiga. Still, they talk about it a lot on This Week in Retro. But I listen to your show. And a huge part of it is, the main part of it is, you, Boat, the Brent, whatever combination of you three it is, you three are so good at what you do and so listenable. Honestly, the little kind of you and Brent knocking your heads together, you raving about something and throwing to Boat, and he goes, "Well, it's a piece of trash." All of it's so listenable. And I never thought I'd be hearing two dudes from America, one who sounds like Boss Hog, one who sounds like a priest, talking about the ZX Spectrum. How did you get onto the ZX Spectrum? Because that's an interesting one, because that wasn't big over there, was it?
Well, the Amiga wasn't either, to be fair.
Right.
I've been a podcast guy for a long time. Like I was listening to one of the first shows in like the late '90s. There was a guy named Shane Armand Road did a show, and I was like, man, I travel a lot, so I was always in the podcast. And I was always irritated because no one was covering the Amiga, for example, like at all. I'd hear like one or two guys maybe did it 5 years ago, or whatever, but I never heard anything from them.
Yeah.
And the only podcast I ever heard cover it was a show called Retro Asylum.
Mm.
And I listened to the early days of that show. And so I knew of the British scene to a certain degree, but they, not a ton. So and Bode had never played with an Amiga. So when we started Amigos, and Bo got into it. I'm like, we're hearing about all these other machines and stuff, but someone gifted us a Spectrum. It was actually my buddy Gary from Australia. He sent us up a ZX Spectrum, just the old flesh keyboard special, the tiny little Spectrum. We fiddled with it. And when you get into it, it's a lot like the CoCo. The CoCo is like the Spectrum of the United States. Forget about the the Timex, I should say. But they both have a nice scene if you get into them.
Yeah.
Now, I will say the Spectrum has a much more enormous amount of material to go through. I heard you ever say we were talking about Minder and stuff like this. And one of the great things about the Spectrum is when you get to the library, it's someone like me, because I can sit here and tell you, hey, man, I played a Minder. You want to hear me talk about it? A lot of people do that.
Mm.
But like, I'd never heard of the show.
Yeah.
I didn't know what Minder was. I didn't know what the definition of Minder was. And so, or a Jockey Wilson or any of that sort of thing, And so we get to go, I don't know anything about cricket. So every week that we do a game like this, I've got to learn what is cricket, who are the big stars. Me and Boat really got heavily into like the pub games and darts and billiards, and stuff, all because of doing the show. And the good thing about the Spectrum in particular, it's got such a vast library of games that are really British, centric games that you get to dive in, and it makes it more fun.
Yeah.
So I think that's the big appeal for us.
How did you go? And we'll talk about your game in a bit. How did you go from being like gamers and having fun to going, I know what, why don't we sit down and record this every week and put it out?
Well, it's a funny story. Me and Brent actually had a show before me and Bo ever did one. It never released. I think we only made 3-4 episodes. It was called Classical Gas. That was my idea for a video game show. And me and him just talked about games, just like a lot of. This is way back. We recorded on Rock Band mics. It's a disaster. And so I knew about podcasting, but I thought I'm never going to do that after that. And me and Boat used to go to Brent's house and play video games. We've got an arcade between the two of us. And I kept telling Boats like how annoyed I was at the Amiga. It's like, listen, you could get some big action on this Amiga topic. There's no one doing it. And I know there's a lot of people like it. And so we talked about it for a couple of years. And finally, Boat had me come to his house. He goes, okay, we're going to record the first episode right now. And I was just like, ugh, I didn't have any idea what we were doing. And then that's when we recorded the very first episode of the show. So Boat and Boat had never had an Amiga. He'd never seen an Amiga. He had no idea what an Amiga was, but that's the very first show, which he just sort of dropped it on me. we did it. And that was, it'll be 10 years ago in, I think, June or July this year that we did the first one. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time, man. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's the longest I've ever stuck with anything.
Well, I have great ideas and I do it for 3 weeks and think this will be the thing that will change everything. And then I get bored, which I know, I recognize that in Boat as well. I know he would buy stuff for a new hobby, then get bored. Does that apply to you as well?
I'm kind of the opposite of that. I mean, there's a museum behind me of my idiotic endeavors. I never sell anything either because I'm always afraid once I sell it, I'm going to be like, oh man, I shouldn't have sold that. So, I've been in all sorts of hobbies over the years, but especially computers. One thing about doing these shows, it's like, it's an enabler.
Yeah.
I used to think collecting classic computers was dumb. I mean, I've been a computer tech most of my life. I was like, I didn't like a computer to me. It was like a toaster or something. It's like, move on to the next thing. But then, here I sat beside an MSX and a CoCo and a ZX Next and all this other crazy stuff. I've got tons of this stuff. Same thing with collecting games. It was the exact same thing. I don't know why that I started doing it, but I had to have some stuff. And, so yeah, but Boat's the exact opposite. He'll buy stuff from Amazon and return it before it gets there. I mean, he gets rid of everything. And he's left several of the shows. Now, some of the shows he had to leave because of real life stuff. But
yeah.
He'll start a show, and if it's not like ARG, he just wasn't down with the way it was going. So, like, I think it's episode 10 or something like that, he was gone. So we just kept it going. Same thing with This Week in Retro. They couldn't get the time situation going with
Yeah.
him and Neil, and it was driving him nuts, and so he moved on. So he's
I
good at he's a real think guy. You know, he
I
knows
would
what he's doing.
I would never diagnose anyone, but he is so ADD. I mean, just it's so obvious.
I don't know if you can you be a music guy and be ADD like that? I mean, he sits around teaching people how to play music from the jump street early on. So I mean, there must be a weird name for what he is.
There's a weird name, probably. Um, you guys were in The Guardian as well,
Yeah,
and I don't
yeah,
know if you know, The Guardian is pretty much the only left-leaning paper we've got in the UK.
yeah,
It's huge, it's huge.
yeah.
Um, and you guys were in it, which I think is fantastic. What was that like?
It was surprising, to be honest with you. I mean, I knew about the Guardian, and someone pointed it out. I couldn't believe it, and I think it was for our Sinclair's, the one that they picked amongst the deck of many things that we do. And I told the Brent, and he was flabbergasted. You know, it was nice. You know, it's nice. You know, I mean, honestly, and we know who we are. We're just three goofs in West Virginia that are just recording stuff, having a good time.
Yeah.
So when someone actually picks the stuff up, it's a real shocker. I can tell you that right now. We were really, and it happens every once in a while, but it is odd.
It must be. And that's why I think, in part, why I like your show so much. It's three goofs having a good time. And you can tell there is real affection for the three of you. You can tell that. I love it, though, when there is that little bit of sand in the Vaseline, when it does get a little bit, hearing you and the Brent talk is just, and like I say, I'm working through ARG Presents. I'm going through it from day one. So that's about 6-7 years of
Yeah.
stuff. Where am I now? I'm on episode. Oh, hang on, there you are. I'm on episode 25, Xbox Test Drive Eve of Destruction and Futurama.
Yeah. Oh, well, you got a ways to go. You know, of course, Brent's my brother,
Yeah.
and so we have a tumultuous relationship, I guess, because Brent is one of these guys that knows how to get me, and he does it, and he revels in it, and I can't not get got. It drives me bananas, and so yeah, he does. He'll do stuff, and then I'll get messages under the videos and they'll be like, "Listen, you're being too mean to the Brent," and I'm like, "If you could see what happens behind the scenes, this guy torments me back here. So trust me, the Brent has it coming."
Um, should we look at your game?
Sure.
I mean, look at it very briefly and
Oh,
with ice on your forehead to stop the migraine. What have you got?
look at that. It's Top Banana, man. It's a funny story about Top Banana. We got this to cover on Amigos, and I was furious because I'd heard it was horrible. And I told Boat, I'm like, I mean, I threw a hissy fit. I'm like, what are we doing? Why are we covering these games that we know are garbage? Of course, a little did I understand this business that well, because sometimes the garbage games get over. And he's like, I don't know, because we don't pick our own games. We got a committee that picks them. So we
Yeah.
don't even get it. And so we played this game, and it was, I mean, but some games are bad, but this game is like someone worked hard to make this as bad as it is. And it became like it endeared itself to me in a way. It's got horrible, horrible sound. I mean, offensive sound, visuals they're pre-programmed to make you suffer. And just when you think you've seen it all, they get worse. They go photo negative or do something like that. But the game, if you get into the backstory of it, it was made to be the first recyclable, like totally green game. If you look at the book in this thing, it's made from this weird paper. It's
Okay.
recycled paper, and so it's got a lot of heart. But it's ugly. So it sort of reminds me of me in a way.
Oh,
I feel like the Top Banana of podcasting. I'm just a little like budget title, but there's a lot of love, in this godforsaken mess. But it's so bad it's good. It sort of became our unofficial mascot. So when you asked about a game, I was like, well, I could pick one of my favorites, like Lionheart, or something like that, or Wings. And I thought, well, what would really stand out for me? What's symbolic? And it was Top Banana. So there you go.
so if you're like Top Banana, Aaron, are you recyclable as well?
Well, I'm compostable. I would say would be a better way to put it. Just give me a few years. I'm working on it.
I heard the episode of that quite a while ago, so it rang a
Yeah.
bell, and I went and looked up some footage before I did this, and there were two kind of things in YouTube. One video is this a great lost classic, and the other video says you've seen Spinal Tap, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I
You
love it.
know, when they're reading out the review of Shark Sandwich,
Yes.
it's the game is described as that basically, and I get migraines sometimes, and people say, "What is a migraine like?" And I don't have the language to describe it. I can just show them Top Banana now
Absolutely.
because
You know,
it's wild.
the lead character KT, I think I described her on the show as like if you're as old as me, it's like a real acided up Liza Minnelli. Like it with a, that's what you're if you remember Liza's rough years, that's what she reminds me of. I'm really dating myself here, but that's what she reminds me of. But yeah, you're right. If you had to picture a migraine, I would say that's a good picture of it.
And bizarrely, the sound we have a TV show over here. You've probably been told this. Sorry, one of my cats is. Come here, Pat. Sit down. But one we have a TV show over here called Catchphrase, and
Yeah.
which is a really dumb game show where there's a computer animation. Say what you see. Say what you see. And the noise from Catchphrase is in Top Banana, which is weird.
Is that groan noise or what is it?
Doing goes like that. Doing. That's the button being pressed on Catchphrase.
Yeah, well, some of the people behind this game were like DJs and stuff. And if you
Okay.
believe it or not, I think there's a CD TV version of this.
Oh,
It's
geez.
got some like music videos and stuff from that outfit. So, I'm not terribly surprised there was some sampling done from local TV.
So explain the process of you choosing a game for the show. It's the who are the committee and how much power do you give them?
All the power.
Oh man.
In fact, every game, with the exception of ARG, because you really can't have a committee do that show the way we do it with the wheel.
Mm.
But every other show we do is picked by not us. Now, occasionally we'll get like one week will be like host choice every once in a blue moon. But we've got a bunch of followers and Patreons and stuff, so we figured, listen, these people are giving you some dough. You might as well like give the people what they want, man. And so we do. We try to, and we play. I mean, they pick stuff. I'm just like, I see what the choices are. I'm just like, oh man, I hope they don't pick that one. And inevitably, that's the one they pick.
Yeah.
But we found a lot of. I mean, they know more than us too.
Yeah.
They know more about the good games or the games they think will be funny if we play. Like we just played a game on the Amiga. It's called Sentinel. I never heard of it, and it was unbelievable, unbelievable game. I guess
Mm.
Jeff Crammond did it. Believe it on the BBC Micro originally, and it got ported out everywhere. But I couldn't believe how good it was. Like I never found that,
Yeah.
in a million years. So it's actually a good thing for us.
I watch that one. Generally, I listen to the podcast, but if I'm sat here working, I'll put one of your videos up and I'll watch it. And I saw the Sentinel one, and that is, I don't know anything about the Amiga, but I recently got a Mister
Yeah.
Pi, the
Oh.
Taki Udon cheap one, and
Yeah.
it has totally changed. I've played more retro games in the last 3 months than I have done in the last 3 years because it's so easy. I've got it under
Yeah.
here, so accessible, and it's got the Amiga on it. And seeing you play Sentinel, I'm getting Sentinel out this week and having a go on it, and that's because of you, because your committee has said, right, you're going to play this game that you don't know anything about, and you
Yeah.
go in and you totally sold it to me. What am I trying to say? Your enthusiasm, all three of you, your enthusiasm shines through, and that's powerful stuff, man. There's no cynicism to it. It's real.
Well, thank you. I have a real problem with my outlook because I've always been like this. It's perpetually rosy. I'm easily excitable. I mean, I'm not depressed ever. I mean, very rarely. I'm always excited and interested in stuff.
Mm.
It's good, but it's bad. It's a double-edged sword. But so it doesn't take much for me to get fired up about anything. And Boat's sort of like that, and Brent's not that way. He's the opposite. So it works out well, but it's, when someone else is picking your games, you just hope for the best. But I mean, like I would never have picked it. I look at these games and like Sim Life comes to mind as a game. I was just like, oh my God. It's a big, thick manuals and stuff. I was like, I don't want to play that. It's gonna be horrible. And we've got a week, by the way,
Yeah.
to play this stuff. And you try to figure it out. But ultimately, a lot of great games we found just by stumbled on them thanks to people that know better. And of course, on the flip side, these are the same people that have had us play like Spit and Image or Top Banana, stuff like these horrible games. So sometimes they just want to give us the business.
So how much time you're doing all these different shows? How much time in a week is taken up to, I don't know, playing, researching, reading up? How much time do you spend?
It's really the playing part and the research part's the fun part.
Right.
The setting up the shows because we do all the production in real time. I do all the production on all the shows except for Brent does a couple of the shows. Brent does three or four of the shows that we do on the weekend. But me and Bo always do Amigos and some of the other ones, and so that takes up a lot of the time just getting ready to go. But I don't gosh I don't know. It's 25 hours, something like that, give or
What, a
take.
week?
Well, I mean, you got to sit down and play these games and try. I mean, you know how this is, man. You've got shows. If you go in there and try, like me and Boat went in there one time and played Pirates. You ever played that game, Sid Meier's Pirates?
I have
And
not played. I'm
we didn't
aware of it, but I'm
we
not
didn't
playing
quite
it.
get it. It's not the simplest game, all right.
Yeah.
And so like they'll come after you, man. I don't want people to think, hey, this thing is a hack. I mean, no, we are. I don't want them to know that. I'm trying my best to get good at the game and understand it. So you got to devote some time. But
But
then there's
you've got a job.
production and other stuff. Yeah,
You've got family.
yeah.
When I knew what you were bringing, I watched 3 minutes of YouTube. That was my was my research.
That's
You
all you
spend,
need.
but you're spending that much time.
Well,
That's incredible dedication.
well, it's incredible something, man. I listen to it like, for example, I drive a lot at work. I work for this Kentucky State Police,
Mm,
and so I'm on the road a lot. So what do? I'll listen to stuff about the game, or
yeah,
history about the company, stuff like that. So I count that. I'm doubling up. Let Kentucky pay for it. They stuck me in the car, and then when I get here, I look stuff up. I mean, some stuff takes more time than others. If we're playing, I don't know, Bubble Bobble, not too bad. You can get through that. But if we're playing something where I'm going to do a lot of research, like cricket or like a game about horse racing, UK horse racing, or stuff like that, or like I don't know how to play billiards. I got to learn how to play billiards in a week, try to figure it out, or cricket. It's tough. So you got to devote more time to that stuff. But it's kind of fun just to learn.
yeah. And you sometimes play, and I don't want to pry too much. If I do, tell me to jog on. But I know
Please.
I've noticed that quite often you'll say, "Oh, I played this with my boy in the week, and he really got into it as well." So you kind
Yeah.
of share it.
Yeah, Luke is occasionally he'll find something he likes. Like we played Chaos on the ZX, and he loves that game. I'm a big
Yeah,
fan of Chaos, and like Deluxe Galaga and Warblade and stuff. Luke's more of an action guy, so, But yeah, I'll try to get some stuff, and you got to, And I will say now, he's obsessed with like Roblox, which is killing me. He plays the crap out of it. He's playing it right now. But he is not the kind of kid that won't play an old game. He'll play. He
yeah.
loves that stuff. So that's nice. And if I need a multiplayer friend, I got to get him. Get in here, help me out, and he does.
It's fun. I got two boys. I don't know how old Luke is. I got two boys, 13 and 15. I was just
Yeah,
playing. They've just launched a Squid Game mode on Call of Duty, so I was
yeah,
playing that red light, green light with my 13-year-old, and they used to be obsessed with Roblox. And this Christmas Eve, we had them and my partner's girls over, and we said, should we get Roblox out? And we're all there playing, and they haven't played it for a couple of years. We're playing Dress Me. I think it's called Dress Me or Dress to Impress, Jailbreak, Egyptian game. And I used to
yeah.
hate Roblox. I mean, it's not a particularly safe place to play, but we were having fun with it for a couple of hours on Christmas Eve.
I have played some of that stuff with him. He plays mostly with his boys, his buddies. But you know, I don't know about Roblox. I
No,
mean, there there's more quality stuff. He doesn't really like. He's got a Switch, but he's not really into like modern stuff all that
yeah,
much. I mean, he likes the Switch stuff, but that's he likes. I guess Roblox is modern. I don't know. I mean, and I'm a little bit older than you, I think, Ian. But when I was a little kid, there was no video games, and then or barely, and then eventually there were. And so it's hard for me to put myself in the position of some kid who grows up
yeah.
with like he's got it all. He's got all the entertainment. He's got all the video games. He's got everything. I heard you talk. I heard one of your old episodes where you talked about trying to get your BBC Micro, I think it was, to load up a clock. by putting the phone on it. And you're the only person I've ever heard because, when I was a kid, we got we had a Tier City color computer. We had a thing called a modem IB. It was the first modem Radio Shack produced that
Yeah.
didn't have couplers on it for your phone. But we didn't know what to do. So
Yeah.
we would just call up random people like on a list. And then when they answered the phone, we would just turn the modem on and just sit there. We had no terminal software. We had nothing. We had to figure it out all by ourselves. No one helped us. Those kids, they don't worry about that. They can just go all the time. So it's a different world. So I hate to come down on the guy too much because I don't know what I would do if I was in his position.
It is a different world. And when my kids ask me about what was it like not having mobile phones, what was it like only having 3 channels, it's the same as me asking my grandparents about a hoop and stick.
Yeah.
It's completely, it's like an alien world that
Yeah,
those
man.
things exist. And yeah, you're right. I when I had my BBC, my friends at school lied to me and said they somehow connected to this thing. And I got the telephone, the home telephone on the big cable, and put it next to the computer. I I feel so silly. And I typed in, hello?
Yeah.
Is there anyone there?
Yeah.
Hoping that it would connect to something. Of course it didn't, but that beautiful innocence.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
I heard you tell that story, and I was just like, I thought this is the guy. He gets it. Well, I mean, there's no roadmap, and it's not like my dad could help me. He didn't know what was going. He
No.
wanted to, but he didn't know. So, but in some ways, I think we're fortunate. I really feel fortunate to have grown up when I did because you've got a foot in two worlds. And it
Yeah.
gives you. I think it gives you a perspective on technology that a lot of people don't get. A lot of people take this stuff for granted. But I mean, my God, we're living in we should be living in a utopian society. We've got everything we want all the time. Why are people more depressed now than they've ever been? Why are they sadder than they've ever been? I don't know. I mean, I wish they weren't.
I know the answer to that is because we haven't got robot butlers and we haven't got flying cars. They were promised to me, but I do think sort of between I was born in 73, sort of mid 60s to maybe the mid 90s is the fastest technological change.
Yeah,
You compare that and you compare mid 90s to now, stuff has evolved, but it's not been such a huge quantum leap of experience and technology.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know where we're gonna go next, but I mean, if you don't remember, these kids have no grounding in what our childhood was. I try to tell Luke. He don't care, I don't think that much. But I try. I'm like,
They
listen, when I
don't
was a
care.
kid, I didn't have a game, blah, blah, blah. He don't care. But not having a cell phone, I mean, most of my life I had no cell phone.
Yeah.
And I was perfectly fine. Didn't bother me a bit. I mean, now we've got cell phones that make us more powerful than the most powerful king from like 10 years ago. And who knows what's next? I think that it's an up and down thing. Part of it is, I think maybe people are sadder because they've got too much information
Mm.
and too much access to each other. And on the flip side, they've forgotten how to communicate, which is it's a weird thing to come together. You've got all this access, but you don't necessarily know how to talk to another human. And I think that's going to be the hurdle we've got to overcome.
That's a really interesting thing. People have forgotten how to communicate. Yeah, I can see a lot in that, and also with the lockdowns and stuff that we've had in the past few. Quick, slight tangent. Slight tangent. After one of the lockdowns we had here, I can't remember what. I took the boys out, and this toddler, this 18-month-old kid, kept running up to us and looking at my boys. And the dad would go, "I'm really sorry." And I said, "If the kid wants to sit with us, he's very welcome." And the kid had been born just before the first lockdown. And this was his first time he'd ever been out. First time he'd ever
Wow.
been out and seen other kids.
Yeah.
18
Wow.
months old.
That's
And I
crazy.
think that's a very specific example of that. But yeah, I think there is this, you can talk to more people, but it's not necessarily communicating on a deeper level.
Yeah. I think the pandemic was I mean, I think it was bad. That made it exponentially worse,
Mm.
communication skills and whatnot. I mean, it's funny to hear that story. That is sort of chilling in a way,
Mm.
but I mean, it affected like we're still not over it. I don't act the way I did before it.
Yeah.
I used to go out every night, even on a weeknight. I didn't care. Go out and run around. Like I'm much more homebound than I used to be, and it sort of makes me angry with myself. But I don't know. It's just the way it ended up. But all you could do is try to do better and try to get back to what it was. But I mean, and scholastically and relationship wise, who knows what effects it's going to have on the
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah. Um, Top Banana, you ever going to go back to it? You going to play it again?
Oh, I play it all the time,
Shut
and
up. Do you really?
yeah, I play it. It's so stupid. I just can't help myself. It's a quick, I play it on. I like to play it on streams and whatnot, or normally we'll play it during like Amigathon or something. We'll get it. It's like Boat always plays Adam's Family. I always play at Lionheart. We usually get Top Banana into. There are perennial Amigathon games. So yeah, we'll come back to it.
We'll wrap it up in a second, but you reminded me, I kind of lurk in your live streams where you will, for like 2, 3, 4 hours, you'll have like a theme, games by one person or games from one company, and you'll just play through them. Are they fun to do?
I, You know, I like live streaming. It's I don't know, is it sort of outside of our normal area? I mean, we've done it for years, but I don't think we did it that great. I mean, used to in the day before I had the Mister, and the Mister's a big help.
Mm,
I would just go on and pick some random stuff and just play it. And if people wanted to watch, I didn't care because I'm not one of these guys out there begging for bits and all that crap. I don't even know how it works. I don't care. I just go out there and do it for fun. But here recently, I thought to myself, what can I do that people haven't seen before? That or like let's pay tribute to somebody like Edgar Vigdal. We did one on Edgar Vigdal, the guy who did Deluxe Pac-Man, Deluxe Galaga, Warblade, some stuff on the Amiga. I thought he was a cool guy to do. Or I just did one on Amiga games based on TV shows. I
yeah.
thought, let's try that. So it's the theming, I think, makes it a little more fun for everybody because it makes you dig down. We love, especially ARG, but I love to dig down into the real weird stuff or the stuff that no one's ever heard of. That's one of the beauties of a show like ARG where you're playing stuff on the Play-Doh or the NASCOM or the, Ohio Scientific Challenger, the Enterprise or the Oric, stuff that no one, I mean, in America, no one knows what the Oric is, for
No.
example, but it makes it more fun. So it makes you go down and play some of those more obscure games.
If people want to find you, where, who, what, why, when, how?
Well, if you're interested in checking us out on YouTube, it's Amigos or Retro Gaming. Um, our podcasts are available everywhere. Our Sinclair, Amigos, Everything Amiga Podcast, ARG Presents, the CoCo Show, the Atari ST Show. They're all out there. Just Google them. And just a cheap plug, if I may.
Please do.
We do a charity event every year called Amigathon. I don't know when it's going to air, and I'm sure Amigathon will probably be done by the time this airs. But we always take donations all year long from the Children's Miracle Network. So if any of the listeners are interested, you can go to amigathon.com, and we don't handle the money. It's all done without us being involved. But Boat tells me we've raised over $30,000 for the Children's Miracle Network in 7 or 8
That's
years.
amazing,
So
man.
I mean, our
Congratulations.
our listeners they're giving, man. That's all I can say. And we appreciate it. We've got a good bunch. They've always been a real accepting, long-suffering bunch, and we appreciate them.
When is the Amigathon? Because I'm not sure what's the date?
It's gonna be January 18th this year, which is a Saturday, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. or 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
I think we will have just missed it.
That's all right.
Yeah, we'll have just missed it, I'm afraid. But I will
But
put all of the links and everything will be downstairs on this downstairs.
sweet, you can
Uh,
give all year long, so that's fine.
Beautiful. And all of the links to find the shows, the YouTube, the donations. If you're watching the video, they'll be down below. And if you're listening to the podcast, they'll be in the show notes. I've really been looking forward to this one. I look forward to all of these, but this has been very, very special. It's so lovely to meet you, my friend.
Thank you. It's great to talk to you, and I really have gotten into your stuff, and you're becoming a big star over here in America now, thanks to
Yes.
your retro work, brother. You finally pulled it off.
I finally made it. Thank you, man.
Thank you.